first experience with mesothelioma?
My first experience turned out to be very scary. I'm a dentist and I'm supposed to know things about physiology. And my hands started to shake and I kept getting tired, but I just thought it was something else. My son noticed that my stomach started protruding a lot. So I went to a physician, and the physician said, it's normal for men to have pot bellies, don't worry about it. And I insisted on having a CT scan done. So the physician went ahead and did it. The radiology report said, there looks like there's something up in the chest cavity. I recommend a second CT scan of the chest cavity, which they did. My physician then said, do you have a mass on your pancreas? We recommend you go to a gastroenterologist and have it removed. That's it? That's it. So I went to my gastroenterologist, and he took a look at the x-ray, and he said, quote, what the hell are you doing here? I said, I got a mass on my pancreas. He said, you got more problems than that. And he ran out of the room. I had no idea what he was doing. He came back, he said, you got a major abnormality in your chest cavity. I'm sending you over to this doctor. He's leaving at 4 o'clock. But you're going over there right now. The pulmonologist looked at the x-ray and he said, whoops, you got a huge buildup of fluid in your lung. You're staying late, and we're doing a fluorescentesis, in other words, drain the lung cavity. And he says, I think I know what it is, but we'll wait for the pathology report, which came back the next day as mesial. And he said, you have another mass up in the upper right hand medial corner, close to the aorta. But I think it's also mesial, so we won't bother biopsying it. And I insisted on a biopsy. And they did it. It hurt like hell. And it came back the same thing. That's my first introduction. Then I called and told my children and my sister, and went on the internet. They went on the internet, did amazing research.
How much did you know, even as a medical professional, about mesothelioma before you got your news?
I probably knew more about baseball than I knew about mesothelioma. I didn't know a thing. Not a thing. On my internet survey, they listed 10 mesothelioma centers. One was the Mayo Clinic. So I called them up and said, I'm on my way. Get me a doctor. Mayo's a wonderful organization. And so I arrived there without an appointment, and I had to wait a day. Then I saw 3 different physicians who specialized in mesothelioma, and they outlined a course of treatment using cisplatin, and they recommended I have it infused down in St. Louis. So we hopped in the car on July 3rd and drove back to St. Louis, and I had to go into the emergency ward where the local oncologist had made arrangements that on July 4th I would start my chemotherapy. Interesting. What was the other question you asked me?
But how has your treatment gone? How effective has chemotherapy been?
Well, that particular one did not turn out well. Meanwhile, my children have been doing massive research. They kept coming up with the name Hetty Kindler. My son, who's an attorney in San Francisco, happened to know Steve Kazan, and he asked Steve Kazan if we'd look into my case for legal action. And Steve said, if you want treatment, my recommendation is Teddy Kinder. So I got it from a number of sources. So I called her up, got in the car, and drove up here. And so that was, the reason I did this is because I am now currently 75 years old, and at that time, being 73, my body could not withstand these side effects of cisplatin. I wound up in the emergency room twice, and so she took me off that immediately and put me on carboplatin, and then that's been going well.
Do you know what your source of exposure was?
Absolutely. My degree is mechanical engineering from the University of California at Berkeley, and I'm starting to slur my words. My specialty was thermodynamics, heat and power. So all our lab work, working on turbines and pipings, involved putting on asbestos, taking it off, putting on asbestos, taking it off, cutting it, working with it. That was just normal. The company I went to work for is called Combustion Engineering, which is a fabulous company to work for. Probably the best job I ever had. But they build power plants all over the United States. So every 3 months I would usually move to a new location. Well, power plants, everything's insulated with asbestos. And of course, I was right in there, mixing it up, making the paste, taking chunks off, heated lines, and putting it back on. And it was just the normal course of action.
Were you concerned about asbestos exposure at the time?
No, we didn't even know what the word was. At the time, I didn't even know what the word was.
It was a good thing. It was preventing all the heat exposure, right?
What?
It was a good thing.
Yeah, asbestos, from a building trade point of view, is a fabulous material. It's very malleable. You can move it to many different shapes. You can weave it. Excellent insulator. It's strong, and everything you want, except it releases fiber that you inhale and resides in your lung. That they didn't know about it, they just didn't tell us about it.
And how does that make you feel now?
Like I said, I went to the most fabulous university ever. They gave me tools that I would have gotten anywhere else. And I'm grateful for the university for the education they gave me. Like I said before, Combustion Engineering was a wonderful company to work for. They treated me fabulously. They gave me opportunities to use my engineering knowledge in the unknown. And they would place me in unknown areas and I would figure it out. I don't have any negative feelings against either organization. In fact, the university's in my will. No. Okay. You can't go back and hate what happened in the past. That won't change anything. It's happened, it's over with. So, what actions, what deeds can you do now to make life better? Not only for you, but for other people. So if you ask me how does it make me feel about these two organizations, no negative feelings.
How do you feel about asbestos being banned?
Well, if it had been done 7 years ago, I'd have been thrilled to death. But right now I am dying, so. Of course, asbestos is a known carcinogen. No discrepancy there. It should be immediately removed, period. Tough task to do because it's everywhere, but we should A, stop mining it, B, stop exporting it, C, stop importing it.
How did you make a leap from engineering to dentistry?
I didn't. When I was living in Boston, putting in a power plant up in Boston, my son was born at Boston Langone Hospital, but he was born with a deformed leg, badly deformed. The bottom of his foot right here was resting on the side of his leg like this. And he would require constant orthopedic care. And I can't travel around the country with my son needing constant orthopedic care, so I quit. Ended up, this is a nice story, but I'm not going to tell it. I ended up working for North American Aviation as an engineer, where I rose to an unusual high position. I was 30 years old and I became one of the project engineers for the Saturn rocket that went to the moon. The difficulty with that is, although I moved very fast through the organization and was performing exceptionally well, I couldn't take the corporate politics. I spent more time playing politics than I did in actual engineering. And I said, that's no way to spend your life. When somebody is behind you trying to get you fired or get your job away from you. So I decided I'm going to change professions. And dentistry seemed to be the best fit. So with 2.5 children, in 1967, I enrolled at St. Louis University Dental School.
Tell me about the importance of your care team. How important are they to your daily comfort? Your care team, your doctors, the people who help you? Okay, they're the ones who guide me, because this is unknown territory no matter how much research I do. They are the expertise, and every single one of them has compassion and understanding of your condition, and they're going to do whatever is necessary. So I rely on them quite heavily, except for one person, the one that's keeping me alive. That's my wife. Yeah. She's the most important. And how does she keep you alive?
Because I'm a very stubborn individual, and she makes sure that I eat properly, I take my pills properly, I keep my doctor's appointments, I follow what the doctors say. She said, your doctor said you're not supposed to have grapefruit juice. Well, all right. She makes sure, because she sits in with my discussion with the physicians and nurse practitioners, oncology nurses, and she makes sure that I do exactly what I'm supposed to do.
And now that you've got this new relationship with everybody around you, what have you learned about yourself going through this?
When I was first diagnosed in June of 2008 and understood what it meant, I made a list of 6 things in the next 2 to 3 years I have left to live.
So I poured myself in to getting all 6 things accomplished, which I did. Yeah. I would never have done those 6 things if I hadn't developed mesothelioma.
You care to share what those 6 things were?
Okay. I developed an automatic commodity trading program that just does it automatically on the computer. I don't go anywhere near it. It just buys and sells on its own.
Oh my goodness.
So last year we did a 60% return. My wife just looked and said, so far we've done a 150% return for 2010. I decided that I had to reach more people than just my immediate friends. So I wrote, with the help of a screenwriter, a 20-minute video in a novel format about mesothelioma.
What do you mean in novel format?
Instead of me just standing on a podium and telling you a whole bunch of facts and figures and what goes on, it's a story. It's a story about a young boy and a young girl. I mean, really young, 5, 6 years old. And the different roads they travel and how they find their destiny. The boy becomes one of the experts in mesothelioma. The girl becomes one of the co-founders of the internet. And in there we weaved in asbestos exposure and what you should do. It's a tragedy, but there's lots of tragedy in this world. Car accident, buildings falling down, heart attack. But what you can do when you meet tragedy, how you can go forward and don't limit. So we shot the panel scene Friday. It's in editing now. I wrote, our high school where my dental practice had no science lab. So they couldn't offer physics or anything else. All they had was conference tables. So I sat down with them and they mostly did the design work and I furnished the money. We built a science lab for the high school. They were absolutely thrilled. The kids were thrilled. The children were absolutely elated. One boy said, I feel like a scientist now because he can do all this experiments and stuff right there in a lab. And everything he needs is right there. The biggest joy of that was that my staff, who are wonderful people, on their own, without asking me, raised over close to $1,100 to buy incidentals for the lab, like glasses and thongs and Bunsen burners and things like that. On their own, they decided that would be a Christmas gift for me. That's wonderful.
That is fabulous. Somebody new being diagnosed with meso, what do you want them to know?
Okay. First, they have a lot more life to live. That's the first thing I want to do. You've got to go out and live your life. Now, I'm a different kind of person. I believe everybody should be productive. So, live your life. Make this world a little bit better than you are right now. That's the first thing I want to do. You got time, use it. Go do something. Not necessarily go bowling or bowling or fun things in life. Do something that's going to benefit others. Second, there's a world of knowledge out there. A world of information. It's available to you. Go search it out. Learn about it. And then hook yourself up with people who know more than you and stay with them. Those are the two things I would say.
Tell me about what ADAO has meant to you.
I just met ADAO last month. I never heard of the organization, didn't know anything about the organization until Linda called me and asked me to be a presenter for Dr. Kimler. Outside, I didn't know a thing about it. But I said, okay, I'm definitely coming up because I do support the idea of eradicating asbestos from the environment. So this is my first exposure. And I'm overwhelmed by the enthusiasm and the dedication and the hard work that so many people are doing here. It's just astounding. But your voices, I had not heard your voice until now. That's not a good sign. So I think you need more people from the public point of view out marching with balloons and caricatures, having meetings in your local community. I would love that next year when we have our meeting, that every chair off the beam is filled with a person of dedication and joy. That's what I'd like.